A very good morning to you, Sunday morning, 17th of May 2020. How you doing? Have you had a good weekend? Are you in good form this Sunday? It's overcast in Salford, but it's not bad. It's a nice morning. It's 11 o'clock, that's what it is. I am at the BBG, Richie Allen, with you for the next hour thereabouts, looking through the UK Sunday newspapers, and we'll drop in on one or two of the mid-morning talk shows as well. Thanks for joining me. The Twitter handle hasn't changed, at Richie Allen Show on Twitter.
It's the BBG, not the BBC. You're listening to the Richie Allen Radio Show, live from Salford in Greater Manchester.
It's the Richie Allen Show, broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Sunday View, eh? Love Sunday View, love chatting to you on Sunday mornings. A nice change, you see, from doing the late afternoon weekly programme. I do want to hear from you today. I will be reading out your tweets as we go along. Quite a bit to get through. And quite a few of you emailed me overnight and sent me tweets because of an interview you came across overnight. Got a lot of American listeners contacting me overnight to say, Richie, here's an interview you must hear. And I heard it, and we'll talk about it shortly. It's about vaccination, don't you know? And that's very important, of course. That is very important. Vaccination and where all of this is going. Made a little promo video this morning, and I'm doing my best not to be constantly banging on about the virus. I know. Because we're fed up of it. All of us, aren't we? Nothing else. A couple of people whom I've gotten to know over the years said to me, it's amazing, Richie. You can watch 3 news bulletins on 3 different news channels, and you can do that for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. There isn't any other news. It's just the virus. Yeah. And it's the same in the UK newspapers this morning. Before we look at some of the newspapers, I want to give a shout out to Piers Corbyn, who's been on with me quite a few times in the last few years. I was introduced to Piers by the terrific Mark Windows of windowsontheworld.net. Recommend you check out Mark if you haven't before. And when he was on the programme last week, Piers did mention that he would be in Hyde Park in London yesterday. And he was in Hyde Park, London yesterday, along with dozens and dozens of protesters. He had a good turnout, did Piers, because he wanted to talk about the lockdown and why it's not necessary and where he thinks it might go around vaccination and why he's concerned about 5G. But he was arrested, Piers, yesterday for, I think, the 3rd time in as many weeks he's been arrested. He refused to give his details to the police and they took him away. Because you don't live in a democracy. Well, you never did. You never did. A constitutional monarchy is not a democracy. It's a fascist state disguised as a democracy. And when you turn up to a park to meet people and to talk to them about your concerns about what's been happening and you're arrested, you live in a fascist country. That's not melodrama. That's the truth. That's what it is. And he was arrested. And before he was using his megaphone, he talked about why he believes that 5G, when it's switched on, might exacerbate the symptoms of any virus. And he was doing a bit of that. And he was talking about, his expertise in physics and astrophysics and why he feels how he feels. And he was dragged away. Dragged away. So there you are. I congratulate Piers on going out there and doing something as a qualified man. I'm not qualified. I'm a journalist and presenter. I often get asked, why don't you go out, Richie, with a megaphone? Why don't you go to local parks? I'm not qualified to tell anybody anything about viruses or about science. So I don't do that. I amplify those voices which are qualified to talk about these things, but those voices that are marginalised. It's as much as I can do. I have great admiration for Piers. You know what pisses me off? The media has reported on Piers Corbyn being arrested. They mentioned that he's Jeremy's brother. Do you know what they hide from their readers? And this, of course, is how the media works. And I've been talking about this now, I don't know, for more years than I care to remember. You know what the media does brilliantly? it omits the fact that Piers Corbyn has a first-class degree in physics, but that he has a master's in astrophysics. They love to leave that out because they want to report that a wild-eyed scientist who's a bit eccentric is ranting about 5G when he's not really ranting. But they don't want to tell you the guy's got a master's in astrophysics. They keep that out of their copy. Writing a story, are you, on Piers Corbyn? Yes. Make sure you don't make any mention of his education. You know, heaven forbid that people find out the guy's actually got an opinion that might be worth listening to. So, ma on far, Piers Corbyn, good man. A lot of time for Piers. Right, the papers then. Let's quickly run through the front pages. The Sunday Times publishes its annual Rich List. Well, it published it today. Its annual Rich List. As gaudy and as garish and as bad taste as you'd expect. The super rich. But apparently there's a twist this year because the virus has cost a combined 54 billion quid. Britain's super rich have lost a combined 54 billion over the coronavirus pandemic. Rihanna is doing well, apparently. Pon the replay. That's a long time ago, that. Rihanna has got millions, hundreds of millions, and she's doing well. Lewis Hamilton is doing well, the Formula 1 genius. And that's the Sunday Times front page. The Mail on Sunday goes with, now it's doctors at war on schools. The row over schools reopening in England next month is dominating the papers today. It's also dominating the television and radio programmes. They're full of it because teachers and unions don't want to go back to school, or at the very least are saying, can you convince us that it is safe for us to go back to school? The government says you are going back to school in June. What's going on? Let's quickly deal with some of this. School safety. Michael Gove is the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Ridiculous. And he was on Sky this morning and the Beeb. I picked out the Sky News interview with Neil Patterson sitting in for Sophie Ridge. Here's a bizarre question by Neil Patterson, who's a bit of an arse, actually. This Scottish guy, he fills in on Sky for people, likes himself a bit. No harm in that, you would have thought. But he asks the most ridiculous questions. Here's one of them.
But what chance is there, and many parents and teachers are asking this morning, what chance is there that children, particularly younger children, can socially distance, can follow the rules and recommendations around hygiene? I mean, my 4-year-old is a biological weapon at...
His 4-year-old is a biological weapon. Run, Neil! Run! I mean, who says that about their child? Hey!
Rules and recommendations around hygiene. I mean, my 4-year-old is a biological weapon at the best of times. Stick him into a school environment and goodness knows what will happen.
Chaos. What does Michael Gove say?
Well, other countries have succeeded in making sure that children can return to school safely. Other European countries like Denmark have done so. And of course, the nature of what happens in the classroom has changed. And it is the case that instead of children working in a group around a table, they're sitting at desks separate from each other. And as a result, they are able to learn. They are able to benefit from being in school. We recognise that, of course, this requires careful working with teachers, but the leaders of some of the country's very, very best schools have said that they can ensure that children and teachers and other workers are safe, and they are proposing to return on the 1st of June with children in reception, Year 1 and Year 6 in primary schools receiving education.
Indoctrination, he means. Indoctrination. Is Gove worried that some schools won't obey and unions will instruct the teachers not to return? Is that a concern?
Well, my understanding is that many independent schools will be returning. That the trade body for independent schools that looks after children of primary age has said that its schools will be returning. And we've also had the leaders of some of the most important academy chains in this country saying that they are confident that children in the designated years can be taught in an appropriate way. We know that if children contract coronavirus, that the impact is significantly less. They're less likely to have symptoms, less likely to have serious symptoms than older citizens. But of course, we also want to make sure that teachers and other workers are safe. And we've been assured by those who, as I say, lead our very best schools, that a staged and careful return is an appropriate way of making sure that the children most in need get the education that they deserve.
I know you hate Gove. I know Gove is a squirrely little bastard, isn't he? He's dreadful, isn't he? I mean, he is loathsome, detestable, but I kind of admire Gove. Anybody who's been doing political journalism for as long as I have, you get to admire wankers like Gove, you know. An absolute genius at spending 60 to 70 seconds talking monumental bollocks. It does take some skill. It really does. Hey, I want to say hi to Donkey Oti on Twitter. How are you doing? Don't think we've seen you tweet before. He says, Richie, if these teachers don't want to go back to work, they should be sacked. Give the jobs to qualified folk who want to work. Well, no trade unionist there, Donkey Oti. I'm a trade unionist. I was born one and I will die one. If they don't believe they're safe, look, we know it's a load of balls, me and you, but if they don't know any better and they don't think it's safe, they have a right to not return to the classroom. I mean, what do parents think? On the one hand, today you've got people speaking to the BBC and to Sky. They are mental health experts, like the charity Mind. And they are saying the children's mental health is suffering really badly due to the lockdown. Now, no expert in the psyche of young children am I, far from it. But around where I live, the children are screaming with happiness morning, noon and night. To the point, I'm seriously considering buying a fucking air gun. And shooting them from my bedroom window. Right? It's a wonderful thing. They're running around screaming at one another. I saw a group of children playing with marbles the other day. I thought I'd gone back to the days when Jacob Rees-Mogg was a child. They were playing marbles. I couldn't believe it. So, if they're out and about running around screaming and playing marbles, it's a good thing, isn't it? I know it's hard if you've got to, if it's financially hard for you because you can't work and you're not being furloughed and all of that. I know it's hard. But I think children running around like lunatics, like my golden retriever puppy, I think it's the way it used to be before we started educating the personalities out of them and the life out of them, you see? So I don't know. Do you want to hear Rachel Reeves, the Labour Party's opposite number, Michael Gove? She's the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. What does she think? Labour doesn't want children to go back to schools just yet because it's not safe enough. The Labour Party. So what would need to happen before Labour would endorse sending the little blighters back to the classroom? Here's Rachel Reeves.
Well, we must remember that schools have been open during the course of this pandemic. All the schools in my constituency in Leeds West and around the country have been open for the children of key workers and for the most vulnerable children. The Labour Party and all of us want to see more children attending school. Anybody who's attempted homeschooling or helping children with their lessons at home know how hard that is and know that for the best possible education, we want to see our children in the classroom. But to do that in a safe way, two things need to happen. First of all, the government need to work with parents, teachers and their unions.
We're not listening to any more of this bollocks. Have you been looking through the newspapers this morning? Have you seen the crazy diagrams where the teachers are wearing protective equipment and face masks and even plastic shields, and the kids are wearing gloves and sitting 2-3 meters away from one another? It is absolutely dystopian. Who wants a child to go through that? How could that be better for a child? It's mental. By the way, Paul Galvin has asked me to give Helen Galvin a shout. Helen is in Cork City. How you doing, Helen? Good morning, Helen. Say a big hello, Richie. She burns the ear off me about the Richie Allen Show every day. Good for you, Helen. Good for you. Dia Gwit, Cora, Helen Galvin in Cork City there. The great Cork City. Love Cork. Right next door to Waterford, to Port Loriga. Yes. Good morning to the Galvins. Good morning to you too. This is Sunday View with me, Richie Allen, going till about 11 a.m. Got some really interesting stuff to bring you in a few minutes' time. We won't have any more of Rachel Reeves. So we won't. No, we won't. Good morning to Steve James. Steve says, Richie, I wonder if Neil, the pie in the sky interviewer, has children and he thinks they are biological weapons at best, and he has them locked in one bedroom at home, slipping them snacks and drinks through a hatch in the bedroom door. Yeah. I know there are parents that the lockdown has driven them mad, but it's because they've bought the Kool-Aid. Like, they believe that they must be indoors. But around here, you see, around Salford, a lot of the parents around here, from day one, they didn't buy this bullshit. And confined to their homes, though they have been, because they can't go to work, they are allowing their little ones run around. I think that's good. That's just me. 16 minutes past the hour. Good morning to Stuart, who tweets us, "These are the damned." Hi to Philip Mills, who says, Richie, we've gone out of our way to keep our youngest away from the news so as not to scare him. We don't want to send him back if it's set up like a borstal, says Philip. Yes, who needs it? And Stuart tweeted some pictures there of what schools are going to look like in the very near future. Lunatic asylums. Children running around being chased by people wearing masks and protective shields and all that nonsense. Liz Jones tweets, the only children that are running about here are my grandsons, she says. And then she tweets a sad emoji. Hi to Penny, who says, Richie, sending small children into school to sit alone for 6 hours is cruelty. Thank you, Penny. Hi to Sean Hinchcliffe. How you doing, Sean? What are you saying, Sean? Fucking Eton and the like aren't going back. Using state school kids as guinea pigs, says Sean. Is that right? Is that right about Eton? Thanks for that. Hi to Dean Smith as well. Let's move on. Let's crack right on. Number of you mentioning to me, actually, that you agree that it's pretty shabby that the media talks about Piers Corbyn and neglects to mention his pretty impressive qualifications. Well, they should be impressive for the readers of the Sunday Times, the readers of the Sunday Telegraph, etc. Right. Jean Ann, my great pal who's in Connemara, noticed it. And a number of you have tweeted me saying, oh, that's a good point, Rich. Of course they don't mention it. They want to knock the guy. They want to take the royal piss out of him for going into Hyde Park yesterday. But God forbid the audience or the readers find out that the guy's actually quite the qualified bloke, you know. Quite the qualifications. Yes, thanks for noticing that. 18 and a half minutes past the hour. Now, what else have we got? Just a few quick front pages. Sunday Telegraph, drugs to thin blood can prevent virus deaths. We've heard a bit of this, haven't we, in the last few days? We've heard about various drugs already being utilised for different things. Right? Drugs that were designed for other illnesses, we are being told might help with the coronavirus. None of the Sunday newspapers have picked up on the bombshell news on Thursday afternoon, which we talked about on the Richie Allen Radio Show. That is, that not even 200,000 people in the country has actually got the virus. That basically it's monumental bollocks. Nobody's picking up on that. No, God forbid. What else have we got for you via the papers? The Sunday Mirror leads with a picture of a beautiful looking baby that apparently died shortly after the photograph was taken. It's a baby called Alex, God love him, who apparently died after contracting coronavirus. That's in the Sunday Mirror. Okay? Make what you want of that. The Observer says revolt over easing of lockdown spreads as poll slump hits Prime Minister. So a number of polls taken over the last few days suggest that the public are pissed off with the Boris Johnson government. The public are a bit nervous and don't want the lockdown to ease, if you believe the polls. This is why weeks ago I said Stockholm Syndrome, and somebody well-known tweeted me, I can't remember who it was, saying that it was a stupid analogy. And I said, it's not stupid. The public are going to get to love their captors. They're going to get to love the lockdown. Not just for selfish reasons, because they're being given their wages anyway, and they're sitting at home getting pissed up watching Netflix. No, not just for that. They will come to trust and believe and accept that they are in danger, and then come to be on the side of their captors, Paddy Hirst and all of that. So according to polls released today, the public are at least expressing, why didn't you turn down your phone, you feckin' Egypt? Because I'm a feckin' Egypt. Let me just do that there. Getting emails from people who are listening. Yes, there's another one. Ping. Let me just turn that down there now. Yeah. How grotesquely unprofessional, you ignorant baldy bastard. Indeed. Sunday Express front page, positive, Britain on fast track to virus recovery. We're going to talk about this in a minute. Before that, though, we're going to take a musical interlude, and then we're going to talk about something very serious. This is Sunday View with me, Richie Allen, 21 and a half minutes past the hour. Love this programme, love shooting the breeze with you. Fancied this morning a little bit of Engelbert Humperdinck, so I did. Little bit of Engelbert. Tell me when will you be mine? Welcome to Sunday View. Yes, Arnold Dorsey. His manager gave him the name Engelbert Humperdinck. Indeed. Engelbert Humperdinck. Fantastic. Yes, 25 and a half minutes past the hour. Right, before we go any further, let me do this. When we come back, I want you to have your ears stuck on. I want them open. Got some very interesting things to talk about when we come back. This is Sunday View with me, Richie Allen. The time, approaching 25 minutes past the hour.
Renowned healer Mark Byersky travels the world to find the most unique and powerful crystals for self-healing. Since the ancient times, crystals have been used as healing tools. They hold a natural healing vibration and are highly charged in positive energy. Mark teaches how to channel the universal energy and transfer it to the crystal to activate its healing power. Each crystal is used for its unique ability to target a different physical or emotional challenge. Mark Byersky is an author, healer, speaker, and founder of the Pure Energy Healing Academy. He shares powerful messages of inspiration and healing on his daily YouTube videos, reaching millions worldwide. Mark's crystals, healing oils, and incense sticks are most sought after by other healers. His collection is available online at www.markbyersky.com. His work is presented through Lemon House, a company that creates and curates consciously made gifts.
Thanks to you, The Richie Allen Show is the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. Show your support for this unique broadcaster by making a regular financial contribution. Just the price of a cup of coffee each month will make a massive difference. Visit richieallen.co.uk for details.
Now, good morning to Julian David Kelly. Good morning, Julian. He says, Richie, the Office of National Statistics changed reporting week for deaths from 7 days to 12 days, which has overlapped since the 25th of March. Thus, deaths are quoted as being weekly are now actually 7 plus 5 days. So they're overestimating the deaths, says Julian. Julian, if that's true, it's absolutely scandalous. Thanks for the tweet. I've retweeted that there. Good morning to you. You can't tweet the programme. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Good morning to Paul Evers. Good morning to There Is No Spoon. That's right. How about a bit of Pink Floyd once in a while, he says. I'm sure we can dig out some Pink Floyd for the week ahead. Wake Up says you play some shite, BBG. See, this musical taste is a very subjective thing. Now, if you're calling Engelbert Humperdinck's version of Quando, Quando, Quando shite, well, Q-tips just won't do it for you, son. You're going to have the wax surgically removed, or have to have the wax surgically removed from your ears to return your mind to a state of normalcy where you actually understand good music. Engelbert is great. Now, let's move on swiftly. This is important. Right. In the Sunday Express today, Britain on fast track to virus recovery. Why? Well, the talk is the government is going to spend nearly £100 million to bring forward construction of a new vaccine manufacturing centre. Really important, this. The Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy announced this yesterday. We're going to spend 100 million, they said, on a massive vaccine manufacturing centre, which is going to be hugely important, not just now, but going forward as we are inevitably attacked by viruses from God knows where. We can roll out vaccines then in mass quantities really quickly. This is scary stuff, right? So this was announced yesterday. A couple of newspapers picking it up today, The Express and The Observer. As well as the 93 million, which is nearly 100 million, a further 38 million will be invested in what they are calling a rapid deployment facility. Right? Manufacturing at scale this summer if they get a vaccine ready. Just in case they get a vaccine ready before the centre is actually complete. Let's stay with this, it's important. So, nearly 100 million quid to build a massive vaccine manufacturing centre. And while it's being built, they're spending another nearly 40 million on a contingency just in case those geniuses at Oxford come up with a vaccine for COVID-19. Anne Diamond is a well-known British broadcaster. She was on Sky News this morning. I'm playing you this because, well, the general consensus in the British media today is, of course, this is a great thing. Anne Diamond.
They're bringing forward this idea of a massive laboratory, which they were working on anyway, but will be a world leader in actually not only developing vaccine, but mass producing it. And they're going to invest £93 million to open this vaccine lab early. They want it open by next summer. It's going to be in Oxfordshire, just up the road from where I am right now, called the New Vaccines Manufacturing and Innovation Centre. And I think the more you hear from certain experts talking about the fact that we may have to live with this virus for a long time, other viruses will probably prey on us in the future. We need to get on top of this. And this is a very good move. I know that President Trump has also announced a similar thing in the States. We actually need to be right ahead of the viruses if we possibly can, if this is going to be our way of life in the future.
And Boris Johnson talking about this, he's written in the Mail on Sunday today and talking about the how important a vaccine is, but conceding that we have to accept we may never get one.
I don't like the sound of that. I'd rather prefer and put my faith in the scientists. I've always believed if you throw enough money at good science, they will come up with something.
What was that, Anne? Because it's damn true, that.
I don't like the sound of that. I'd rather prefer and put my faith in the scientists. I've always believed if you throw enough money at good science, they will come up with something.
Yeah, they will, of course. If you throw enough money at them, as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has, they'll give you a vaccine. Don't worry about it. They'll give you a vaccine. Yeah. Out of the mouths of babes. She used to be a babe, Anne Diamond. She still is.
I hope and pray we get a vaccine.
Oh, let's pray together. It is a Sunday, after all.
But, I mean, clearly this is the only way to try and find one.
Yeah. Let's pray the way the travelling community pray. Let's pray to the baby Jesus. Pray to the baby Jesus that we get a vaccine that we can all take and live happily ever after.
Is to throw money at it. And
throw money at it.
And have some faith in...
And just have some faith. If you throw enough money at these scientists, they'll give you a vaccine. Don't worry about it. They bloody well will.
In good old British ingenuity and great old British science.
Yeah. Let me say good morning to Patricia Opulenza. Good morning, Patricia. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Thank you for your kind words on Twitter there. Patricia, lady, lovely. Thank you for that. Love that. Appreciate that. I'll retweet it in a minute. Now, so they're all happy. And when Diamond finished saying what she said, the Sky News presenter Sarah Hewson said, yes, we all agree, Anne. We all agree. Let's get that vaccine quick. Now. Got up this morning to a dozen emails at least. Richie, did you see the Alan Dershowitz interview yesterday? Did you, Richie? No, of course I didn't. Alan Dershowitz is a very famous lawyer. Famous for a number of things. He was part of Donald Trump's impeachment defense team. He was on the O.J. Simpson team, wasn't he? Way back in the day. And of course, many of Richie Allen Show listeners will probably remember him for his part in the downfall of the truly great Norman Finkelstein. I don't mean the downfall. Norman isn't down and out, but Dershowitz was instrumental in bringing down Norman Finkelstein because Norman, of course, wrote The Holocaust Industry. Norman's aunt and his mother were interned at Auschwitz. Norman wrote an amazing book about how the Holocaust has been used. How it's been used by certain dark actors. But he also accused Dershowitz of plagiarism in reviewing one of Dershowitz's books. And Dershowitz went after him, tried to destroy him. And of course, he had the weight of the Anti-Defamation League and, a lot of money behind him. And poor old Norman was on his own. Dershowitz is, what's that word that rhymes with stunt? I can't remember it this morning. It doesn't bear saying on any radio show anywhere. He's a horrible man. So of course I didn't hear any interview with Dershowitz. Yes, I couldn't give a shit about Alan Dershowitz. But I had a look into it. Dershowitz is an expert in constitutional law. Yesterday he appeared on a podcast with a man called Jason Goodman. Now Jason Goodman has a popular YouTube channel in his own name, and he also has a YouTube channel called Crowdsource the Truth. Okay, the entire interview with Alan Dershowitz is on the channel. I am telling you, it is compulsory viewing. You've got to watch it. And congratulations to Jason Goodman for his excellent line of questioning. His questions to Dershowitz are brilliant. The interview starts out, Dershowitz is talking about the rights of individual states and the government to take measures to prevent the spread of infection. Listen up.
The city of New York, the state of New York has the power to close a park based on their view that it would be helpful in defeating the pandemic. Absolutely no question about that. The Supreme Court has case after case after case saying that public health justifies closing down parks, closing down public areas. The next question is, does the governor have the right to do that? Governors generally are not authorized to make the law. They're authorized to enforce the law. So you'd have to look to see if there were legislative authority allowing the governor to close the park. If there is, then it would be legitimate. Let me put it very clearly. You have no constitutional right to endanger the public and spread a disease, even if you disagree. You have no right not to be vaccinated. You have no right not to wear a mask. You have no right to open up your business.
Wait, can I stop you? No right not to be vaccinated? Meaning if they decide you have to be vaccinated, we have to be vaccinated?
Well done, Jason. Say what now? They have no right not to be vaccinated? What did Dershowitz say?
Absolutely. And if you refuse to be vaccinated, the state has the power to literally take you to a doctor's office and plunge a needle into your arm.
What was that again? That was important.
Absolutely. And if you refuse to be vaccinated, the state has the power to literally take you to a doctor's office and plunge a needle into your arm.
Does it really? We'll find out in a minute.
If the vaccination
Where is that in the Constitution?
If the vaccination is designed to prevent the spreading disease. If the vaccination is only to prevent a disease that you will get, for example, if there's a disease that will kill you, you have the right to refuse that, but you have no right to refuse to be vaccinated against a contagious disease. public health, the police power of the Constitution, gives the state the power to compel that. And there are cases in the United States Supreme Court. Case that pops into my head, I may have the name wrong, is Jacobson. I think probably I have it right. Check it out.
So this very famous lawyer, speaking to Jason Goodman, says, if it's a vaccine for a disease that only you can get, but isn't communicable, you have the right to say, feck off, I won't be having it. But if it's to prevent a contagious disease, the state reserves the right to insist that you have the vaccine, to the point where it could take you along to a doctor's and oversee the administering of said vaccine. So he mentioned Jacobson. Now, this has come up on the programme in the past. My American listeners and some of my listeners in the UK and Europe who follow the vaccine story closely will have heard of Jacobson. This, of course, is a Swedish pastor who came to live in the United States in the late 19th, early 20th century. And the case that he is referencing is Jacobson versus Massachusetts, which went to the US Supreme Court, which is the highest authority legally in the United States. You know, there are 9 Supreme Court justices. Look it up, it's very, very interesting, right? Any appointment of one when one dies is very, very interesting, right? So, back in 1905, the US Supreme Court upheld the authority of states like Massachusetts to enforce compulsory vaccination laws. The court said that the freedom of the individual can sometimes be subordinated or overlooked if it means that it's in the interest of everybody else. And the police can enforce it. This is true now. So this guy Jacobson was very much anti-vaccine, and he resisted mandatory vaccinations for smallpox. You can look at this. There is a Wikipedia page. I know it's a lazy thing to do, but we looked into this on the radio program a few years ago. So when smallpox was all the rage, don't get into smallpox with me. I know what you think about it. Doesn't matter right now. So don't tweet me about it. Don't tweet me about your series of smallpox. I couldn't give a shit right now. For another day. I'm with you. I empathise with your suspicion about smallpox. I empathise. But it's for another day. Anyway, Jacobson didn't want the smallpox vaccine. And he said, feck off. In Swedish, presumably. Or in American Swedish. I don't want it. And none of my children will have it either. And the state said you will have it. There was a $5 fine for not having it. That was no small beer back in 1905, by the way. $5. 'Twas major money. Right? And he said, I'm not having it. And he lost in court and he took it to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court upheld, and this is the precedent, the right of the state to say, tough shit, Paddy. You're having it. You're having it. Your sovereignty over your own body, your domain, doesn't matter. The state can, on occasion, when entirely necessary, whisk you off to have a vaccine. Your individual rights don't supersede the rights of everybody else. Now, the 14th Amendment was brought up in the court case, of course, where Pastor Jacobson said, you know, my individual liberties are protected by the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. But the court said, well, not in some cases. Not in some cases. And the Supreme Court said the state may be justified in restricting individual liberty under the pressure of great dangers to the safety of the general public. Now, this fucking decision was upheld again in 1922 when it was challenged. It remains. It is the precedent. So when Dershowitz tells Jason Goodman, who is absolutely gobsmacked, that if they want to drag you kicking and screaming to a centre, whether that's likely or unlikely tomorrow, it mightn't happen tomorrow, it might happen in a year or 2 or 3 years, but the right is there to do that. The precedent is there. Okay? Some of you will know this because you are more astute when it comes to vaccination laws and all of that than I am. So you'll know. But for many of you, it'll be brand new information, this. Anyway, let's hear a bit more. It's reasonable, says Dershowitz. It's reasonable.
You'll see that there are cases after cases after cases that the public health permits reasonable actions to prevent the spread of communicable diseases. Most of them grow out of tuberculosis cases in the early 20th century, but some are more recent than that. But there's still an issue of whether the governor has the authority to create laws, and that's a matter of state legislation. Yeah.
But you've opened up a whole new area here. So the governor has the right, the government has the right to force someone to be vaccinated. But how do we know what they're providing us from a medical standpoint is accurate? There are doctors who argue that Anthony Fauci is totally wrong in his assessment, and it certainly seems like week to week, month to month, they don't seem to know anything about this virus.
I agree with that. I mean, I think there's a lot. I wrote an article early on pointing out two fundamental errors right away. But that's what a democracy is about. And if the majority of the people agree and support that for public health measures, you have to be vaccinated, you have to be vaccinated. They should give you an alternative. The alternative is to live in your home, don't get vaccinated, but never, ever leave your home or live in a bubble.
Nice fella, isn't he, Dershowitz? Oh, there's an alternative. Be a prisoner in your own home, live in a bubble if you don't like the vaccine that we want to give you. Lovely fella.
A bubble. But if you want to interact with other people, you cannot become Typhoid Mary. The Constitution doesn't...
Typhoid Mary, eh?
...doesn't give you the right to spread your illness to other people. And you can disagree. You can be...
Jason is frantically typing away there in the background. He's very good, Jason Goodman. That was a great question about those who advise Trump, Fauci and all these other fucking gangsters. Right? Great question. And he asked another brilliant question in a minute. He's typing away there to see, probably he's looking for the Jacobson case.
In dissenter, you can leave the country, you can go into a bubble. But what you can't do is say, I don't disagree, I don't agree with Fauci, therefore I'm going to take the law into my own hands and decide to spread the disease. That's not a constitutional right.
Not a constitutional right. You've got to live in a bubble, never go outdoors. It is not your right to not be vaccinated. Now, Jason Goodman is really excellent. I didn't know very much about the chap at all before this morning, and this is brilliant. You see, I get emotional sometimes. Good journalism and good presenting is becoming like hen's teeth. So when a bloke does his job, I want to reach across the Atlantic and hug the mother trucker and give him a big old kiss on the lips and say, Jason, ma on far. This is world class. This is Jason Goodman's follow-up question to the Dershowitz bullshit there.
We're mixing the fields of medicine and law, and the proof of something in law seems vastly different than the proof of something in medicine. A lot of the people who are advising us as to the future of vaccinations in this country are the very same people who have been kicked out of major countries for for serious failures and injuries resulting from vaccines that they felt were going to be beneficial.
Yes, Jason! Like millions of people around the world, like hundreds of thousands of people paralysed in India by the toxic shit recommended to them by Bill Gates. Yes! This is journalism. This is proper presenting. Oh, I've got a fucking hard on here.
I'm very troubled by the legality of what you're suggesting because it seems like we're very close to a government mandate that we must all be vaccinated. Let me take you in another direction.
I would like to see a government mandate. If the safe vaccine is developed for COVID-19, I hope it's mandated.
Yes, Alan, but Jason just got done telling you that the fuckers promoting vaccines for COVID are people who have destroyed people's lives in some of the poorest countries in the world, man. Jason's point being, how could you ever trust them? You know? Why would you? Huh? You might as well get a 6-shooter, put 2 bullets in there, roll the old barrel and put it to the side of your head, Alan, is what Jason is saying.
And I will defend it and will argue that in the Supreme Court of the United States against your views.
And you would get it if they came out tomorrow and said there's a vaccine that's ready.
This one online, my children would get it, everybody would get it. If we felt it was safe, we'd make our own, obviously, make our own judgment.
Touché, Alan. if you felt it was safe. But again, let's go back to what Jason said. The people who are responsible for looking into developing this vaccine and pushing it on you are lunatics, Alan. They've left a trail of destruction and broken fucking bodies all around the world. So why would you take their vaccine, Jason? Or Alan?
Judgment, if we decided to become civil disobedience and violate the law, that would be a different thing, but the law would be completely valid.
I know you have limited time, so let me ask you about this other professor at Harvard, Charles Lieber.
Oh, I have a hard on. Oh, this is fantastic, this. Oh, if we could just have a bit of this. Wonderful. He brings up Lieber. I mean, this is outstanding. A man after my own heart. Everything Goodman has said to Dershowitz. These are questions I would be putting to Dershowitz or anyone else. This is outstanding. It's outstanding. I've got to say it again. He brings up Lieber. This is insane. Listen.
Charles Lieber. He's been indicted. Sorry?
Never heard of him.
Oh. Charles Lieber is one of the world's leading experts in nanotechnology. He has been indicted along with two of his Chinese students who...
He keeps talking over him, saying he never heard of him. I don't believe Dershowitz. Well, Dershowitz is a pathological liar anyway. He's a proven liar. Lawyer. He's a liar, right? And he's gone out of his way there to kind of shut down Goodman as he's talking about Charles Lieber. And of course, Charles Lieber is very important because of what they want to put in the vaccines, of course. That Dershowitz wants to be mandated. Right?
Sorry?
Never heard of him.
Oh,
you did.
Charles Lieber is one of the world's leading experts in nanotechnology.
Yeah.
He has been indicted along with two of his Chinese students who, well, let me just bring you up to speed.
Sure.
Two of his Chinese students who failed to declare on their student visa applications that they were members of the Chinese military.
Yeah.
Dr. Lieber's group, in their research in the area of nanotechnology, have created robots. Robots that are smaller than viruses, that can actually enter cells and carry out functions within the cell. And we have the very realistic possibility, Professor Dershowitz, that there are nanotechnology groups around the world, and actually a high concentration of them at Harvard University, that are creating these nanobots that could behave exactly like a virus and could even mimic some of the symptoms and impact that we're seeing from COVID-19. So I'm very concerned when the law can get behind this and force us to take a vaccine for something that's so misunderstood from a medical standpoint.
That's absolutely brilliant presenting. What does Dershowitz say? Does he pick up any of those points that they want to put robots that are smaller than viruses into vaccines to inject them into people? And if you get your way, and if you are right that the law exists anyway, which it does, that they can start insisting that people have vaccines, you're basically going to be turning people into some sort of post-human, transhumanist thing. It's not good, Alan, is it? What's Dershowitz's response?
Well, I want to make sure it's well understood, and I don't think we'd ever get legislation passed unless there was a very, very widespread consensus across the board. Remember how hard it is to get legislation enacted in this country. You've got to get the House of Representatives. You've got to get the Senate to approve the same language that the House approves. You got to get the president to sign the bill. Then you got to get the courts to uphold it. Once all of those checks and balances have been satisfied, that's the democracy we live in. And, if you don't like it, there are other places you can go to.
If you don't like it, you can get the hell out. Go back to the very beginning. Listen again.
Let me put it very clearly. You have no constitutional right to endanger the public and spread a disease, even if you disagree. You have no right not to be vaccinated. You have no right not to wear a mask. You have no right to open up your business.
Wait, can I stop you? No right not to be vaccinated? Meaning if they decide you have to be vaccinated, we have to be vaccinated?
Absolutely. And if you refuse to be vaccinated, the state has the power to literally take you to a doctor's office and plunge a needle into your arm.
Plunge a needle into your arm. That was Jason Goodman interviewing Alan Dershowitz yesterday. Now, the entire interview is available on Goodman's YouTube channel. And what's very interesting about, I don't have time to get into it, is after they get done talking about the dangers of vaccines and how wrong it would be to insist that somebody has a vaccine, Goodman outdoes himself and actually brings up Bill Gates' relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It's a brilliant bit of podcasting on YouTube, and I recommend it highly. I watched it this morning. The precedent is there. The Supreme Court ruling is there. If a state feels that a vaccine must be rolled out, you as an individual, no matter where you are in the US, actually don't have the right to say I don't want it. Well, you do, of course. You can say I don't want to have it. But the government reserves the right to force you to have it if it chooses to take up that option and say you've got to have it. We'll send somebody around, or we'll send a car for you. Yeah. And you hear in UK news today, 100 million quid or short of 100 million quid is going to be spent on a new massive facility to manufacture vaccines. And you have the UK media in its entirety today saying this is a great thing because we're going to be fighting off lots of new viruses in the coming years. I'm going to finish with this. There's a woman, you will have heard of her. Her name is, I'm going to make a complete balls of pronouncing it. Her name is Soumya Swaminathan. That's the one, Soumya Swaminathan. She is the chief scientist at the World Health Organization. Soumya Swaminathan. She was on the Marr show today with Andrew Marr, and his first question, and that's all we'll hear. We'll hear her answer. His first question was, is it true that you believe we'll be fighting COVID-19 for about 5 years? Will we be fighting it for 5 years, says Mar?
I think that's what we're all grappling with as people as well as governments. How do you get back to some degree of normalcy without allowing the virus to get the upper hand? So it's really maintaining that balance. And you have to look at a number of interventions to be put in place as people start going back to work, going back to schools. Families want to meet again. We want to go shopping. We want to have social events. But at the same time, we know now what is needed to keep this virus from spreading. The basic principles of maintaining physical distancing, of personal hygiene, respiratory etiquette, wearing masks when...
Respiratory etiquette, she said. Jesus, that's a new one. Did you hear that?
The basic principles of maintaining physical distancing, of personal hygiene, respiratory etiquette.
Respiratory etiquette.
Wearing masks when you're out in crowded places or staying home.
For 5 years now.
Home, sick, and so on. So that has to become the new normal. But I do believe that, society has to restart. Calibrate it.
Now, you're the chief scientist, but I know in your own special area, you're a paediatrician as well. Can I ask you what the latest evidence is about children infecting each other?
Imagine how bad you've got to be to not pick her up on respiratory etiquette and 5 years worth of social distancing. But of course, Andrew Marr is not really that bad, of course. This is the BBC. It's a dance between him and this crazy Soumya Swaminathan, chief scientist at the World Health Organization. It's a dance disguised as an interview. It's a dance where she gets to vomit forth this propaganda about how we'll have to live like this for 5 years. Respiratory etiquette. And he moves on to asking about the children. Vaudeville, eh? That's it for me today. Do go to YouTube and find the interview between Jason Goodman's interview with Dershowitz. Find it, watch it, share it with others. It's quite an extraordinary thing. Crowdsource the Truth is one of his channels, Jason Goodman. That's it for Sunday View. I'm back with you tomorrow on Monday, 18th of May, 2020, with the Richie Allen Radio Show. This is a nice day for the oft-mentioned Caroline, my partner, and I, because it was exactly 1 year today that we moved into our new home. We got the keys on the 14th. I mentioned this in the week. And today was the day last year that we moved in. It was chaotic, but it was quite fun as well. So we'll be having a very quiet little drink later on to celebrate one very quick year in this house, in Salford, in this lovely community. And where I think we've been, where we're going to be happy, I think, for the next few years. And let's hope we make plenty of Richie Allen radio shows from here in the next few years as well. I'm going out with Dionne Warwick, okay? And I'm wishing you a lovely Sunday. And we'll do it all again tomorrow at 5, as I said. Bye for now. Bye.